part of the reason I'm thinking that is because, with America in the system, for the owners or whoever is going to be whoever is going to participate, for them is what return am I getting?
Yes.
When I'm investing, what is my return? Because that's all that matters for these guys.
That's the bottom line. But then again, there's that argument of, even when, for example, like men's soccer started here in the US, it was not a viable it was not a viable investment. But
so the U.S. women's soccer team, they had a lawsuit because they were not being paid compared to their male soccer team. And the interesting thing is that the United States women's soccer is the more winningest team compared to their male counterparts. So when it comes to World Cups, the United States women's team usually does very well. And when it comes to international games, they do very well and they have been ranked very highly. However, their pay does not indicate that. So if you think about the American dream and some of the nuanced things that we are told, if you put your head down and work really hard, then you're going to, get compensated. The U.S. women's team was not experiencing that.
Okay.
And there are some other leagues where they've had this issue. For example, when it comes to the National Hockey League, for example, they have a men's team and a women's team. And they also were in the pursuit of a lawsuit, and the men's team actually kind of band together with them, and so that was resolved very quickly. But when it came to the U.S. soccer team, this has been in litigation for several years. Mind you, there's 4 years, between each of these world stage matches, and so it's not surprising that in 2022 they came to a settlement. And part of the settlement was not just the pay, which there was a certain amount, I think it was $24 million that was promised to the players, but there was also a promise to upkeep and make sure that there was an increase in wage for the women who played in the World Cup. The reason why this is significant at this point in time is because the focus on that litigation, I believe, has had an impact on their ability to perform, because this is now an added stress that other teams do not have. And that's something to take into account, right? So if you are in the middle of litigation, whatever your job may be, it might have an impact on your ability to perform. Not only that, we have the changing of the leadership there within the Women's World Cup, and we cannot say to what degree the litigation had an effect on this, but that is a factor. And when it comes to the leadership, that of course is going to that's going to create an impact on how the team is able to perform, the cohesiveness. You want to have a continuation of leadership, and when it comes to coaching and things like that. I'm very hopeful for the team because the players are very strong players. That's without a doubt. And being compensated accordingly is also going to be very helpful. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in this current World Cup, but then also in the future, if they're being compensated at the level in which they are performing. I'm very curious to see what that does for the women who play for the World Cup, and also what type of talents that's going to bring to the team in the future.
And to add on what you're saying, so with the women's game and the men's game, the women's game, like in the U.S. soccer, when it comes to U.S. soccer, the women's are known for, they're known to be the better team, and they're just the face of U.S. soccer. But something to take into consideration is that it's all about exposure. Because in TV, you see, it's all about the men's soccer and men's game. And it's the same thing with the NBA. You can look at the NBA and the WNBA. So it's everywhere. But the fact is that it's all about exposure. That's what it comes down to. It's all about the exposure.
So you think the women's teams, be it soccer or basketball, they're not getting enough exposure?
They're not getting enough, because you see an NBA game, it's advertised and all that, and with that WNBA, it barely gets advertised the same way. So it's,
or even sponsorships.
Exactly.
If you go down the cereal aisle, do you see NBA players or WNBA players?
No, that's true. That's
I mean, there are many things you can look at. Sponsorship. Look at now, for example. How many knew that there's a women's soccer league in the US? Yeah,
the NWSL.
Right? Not that many people know that.
Know about it.
Right? So all you're seeing is there's MLS. Messi is here.
But do you think
Right.
do you think maybe there's fear out of the sponsors that if we sink a lot of money in here, we might not get a return out of this investment? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I'm just
I know in America,
yeah
it's the bottom line
yeah
is the dollar.
okay.
That is it.
Okay,
Am
let's
I
talk
going
about
to
this.
make money?
Let us talk about this.
Yes.
Right now, we just had the biggest premiere, one of the most anticipated double premieres that happened in movie theaters, and it was
Oppenheimer
Barbie,
and Barbie.
the Barbie movie,
Yeah.
and
Oppenheimer and
Oppenheimer.
Barbie.
Yeah.
Right? So, if we're going to have a conversation about, like, can we invest in things that are women led, that is only women and women's sports, and the same advertisers, marketing companies that invested in Barbie. Barbie has the most intense marketing campaign that I've seen in a long time. If those are the same companies that are also being hired to do women's sports, then it's a choice at that point.
Okay.
Because what we have seen is Barbie has gotten, they've done collaborations all over the place. There's nowhere where you can go and you don't see a pink out. The fact that pink out has become a phrase is a thing that used to be a Mean Girl saying on Wednesdays we wear pink.
And a lot
Barbie
of,
has taken over that,
Yeah.
and all of that is marketing, so they know that it works, and they've grossed that money back.
you
But
see a
they're
lot of
just
people,
not-
like,
So it's
but-
a choice
yeah.
now when it
Okay.
comes to sports in comparison.
Yeah.
But if I may also say, Barbie has been there for a long time.
So is Mia Hamm. I
Mia
will
Hamm, but
always
that's-
remember her taking
Yeah.
off her shirt when she won that
In
gold. I mean,
1999.
Yeah, before the Nigerian did.
Yeah.
Right,
before the
right,
Nigerian
right.
did.
Like
Yeah.
she did that. She got penalized for it.
But Barbie has been there since 1950s, right? 40s,
Okay.
Long
30s.
time, long time.
So what I'm trying to say
But
is,
also Barbie has been problematic since 1950.
I know because
Yeah.
it has always been
A white
one
girl.
side. It has always been. But again, when you're looking at and I agree with what she's saying, but sometimes you look at what you're seeing that is being laid out in terms of how much money is being invested and put in.
Yeah.
Like now, for example, let's look at the WNBA. Have I been to one? I've never been. I haven't even been to an NBA game. But when you turn on any NBA game at any time, whenever the season is on, you look at let's say the Wizards,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Almost full, depending on whoever
Yeah.
is there.
Especially when the
There's
Lakers
always a
come.
crowd.
The
yeah.
Lakers, there's always a crowd.
There's
always
when
a
you
crowd,
flip
yeah.
and you look at, let's say, the WNBA, because sometimes doesn't the WNBA start sort of towards the end of
The
the
NBA
NBA
Yeah.
season
to give them like the
to
opportunity.
give them the
exact
opportunity to say
exactly.
to do something, right?
Yeah.
But again, I think there's not that much effort being done. And for me, I'm thinking part of the reason I'm thinking that is because with America in the system, for the owners or whoever is going to participate, for them is what return am I getting
Yes.
when I'm investing?
Yeah.
What is my return? Because that's it. That's all that matters for these guys.
That's the bottom line. But then again, there's that argument of even when, for example, like men's soccer started here in the US, it
Yes.
was not a viable. It was not a viable investment. But then a lot of money was still pushed and put into it until it got to the point where it is. So I think that sometimes the argument that's brought up to those who are against this idea of pumping money into women's sports. So yeah, so we now wanna slowly shift back into the conversation. We have one quick last I don't know whether it's a question or whether it's a comment from Baba Neyman.
Hey, thank you for giving me the
Yeah.
opportunity to say something. Along the lines of the earlier speaker, and to piggyback on the point Uno said, in the US, we all know that everything is a consumer society, so everything is backed by the possibility of the market to respond positive to the opportunity. And to me, if there's an area that has utilized data in the US very well, the marketing area and the military have done this from many years. And if they have known, since they know that this is not something that it's really going to offer the equal return to what they're going to invest. I think they're slowly going to invest their money, sort of like a seed money, that, okay, we are putting in what is not, we don't really look for return out of it. So this is a stage what they're doing. The US participating in this competition, even not necessarily putting a lot of money. If you've noticed, there are a lot of foreign players, like, for example, Nigerian team, everyone goes to University of Pennsylvania, go to University of Maryland. It's like foreign players, but coming from the US roots and getting the US start, or the US basic to to spearhead their talent. And I think that's where either the US will benefit the entire world to pull them into the market that they want to drive, and then they benefit out of it. So I think they know the dynamics, and they're thinking, well, if this gets to be aligned with what we wanted, then the market of soccer, especially in women, it's going to be our world, and we're going to run it for a long time. And I think they have enough. They have invested enough, and they know that they will run the world for quite some time. That's when the compensation is going to be not just within the US, it's going to be outside. Because other players now will start saying, why can't we be compensated like how US players are compensated? So the debate will turn around that, okay, look at how much US is paying their women's soccer players, but how about us?
Yes.
We went to school in the US, we play with them, we compete with them, but why don't you compensate out the same? And I think that will be another more heated debate than what it is now.
Okay.
Very powerful point.
Yeah. So
very powerful point.
Yeah, so I think we are on to a very interesting time, like when it comes to women's soccer and women's sports in general.